Hey y'all, out here at Griffey's today, checking up on the 47 Town and Country, the Woody that we've been following on the restoration project. It's I think all the woodwork's done on it, so I'm excited to see it, and it should be cool. It's coming along. So, anyways, let me run Larry down, and we'll find out where this thing's at. Larry, how are you, brother?
Doing good, Scotty. How you doing?
Not too bad, boy. This thing looks a whole lot different than when we saw it last time.
Well, it's coming along pretty good. We've got the wood has all been repaired on it. We've got it on the rotisserie now, and getting ready to clean all the cowl and the floorboards underneath. We've started scraping and cleaning the tar and undercoating and stuff out of there. This car has an exceptionally strong floor and everything in it. It's very sturdy, no rust in it, so it's going to be pretty easy cleanup and all of it. We'll get the tar and the undercoating and stuff off of it, and then we'll end up sandblasting that lightly and then applying primer to it, and then getting the cowl and everything slicked and what little body work there is to do to that, and get it in a final primer and paint on that, and then we'll go back to the wood and put the final coats of clear on it. Right now we've just put a first original coat of clear on it to preserve it and make sure that we don't get any kind of handprints or anything on the wood once we have it on.
Oils or anything like that.
Right, exactly.
Cool.
No contamination on it.
Let's look at it.
Sure.
That's a lot of work in there. And folks, if you've not seen it, I did a video on this a month or so back before they got all this wood finished, and to see what it was and see what it is amazing. And if you look, now I was talking to I forgot his name. Who did the work on it? Jeff. I was talking to him. He had somewhere to go, but I'd like to talk to him too. But he was telling me, like, even when I don't know that this is a repaired piece, but even where you repaired it exactly like the piece that came out.
Yes, it did. There are places. This one was not a repair. As an example, you'll see the grains turned. All of this wood was done up in blocks, like you were doing a butcher block.
Right.
In other words, they didn't take a big piece of wood and cut it out of it.
Right.
They took small pieces of wood about 1 inch thick and maybe 8 inches wide, and they laminated those together, glued and laminated them under pressure, and then they started cutting and carving and shaving and shaping to get these contours. And that's
right.
exactly the same way that Jeff did the repairs on this.
And even if he said, like, even if they'd used 3 pieces and now you could have got by with 1 piece.
We put it back with 3.
Put it back with 3.
Thing. He did this as an example back here. Back here is a repair. This was done this way. This was cut out. This piece was in here just like this before.
Original,
it was
yeah.
rotten, but it had wood rot in it, but
right.
we replaced it. This whole rear pan he built and fabricated the entire rear pan to duplicate. All of these finger joints that you see in it, he repaired all the finger joints and put those back. The entire back piece across here, if you'll notice the 1169.
Yeah, I wonder why you didn't sand that off.
That is the manufacturer's, probably for lack of a better word, this was the car number when it was being built. In other words, all these pieces were cut out for job number 1169.
Oh, I see.
And of course, we replaced all this. Jeff cut this right here and went across. I say we. Jeff did the majority of the work on this. Everything's, to be honest about it.
Right.
I didn't really do any of the woodwork on it. I'm not a woodworker and I don't pretend to be, but Jeff's a pretty good woodworker. And he glued and made all of these, so we had the stampings done just like the originals. We made a duplicate of the ones that we did not have to fool with.
Right.
And then we re-stenciled them on there back in the correct locations of where they were before we did the repairs on them.
Wow. That's crazy.
This whole piece across here was made, and if you'll look at it closely, you'll see that this is the boards. In other words, they're stacked up,
right.
and then cut off. And then as you go across the stack, then you get shorter ones in the middle, longer ones on the edges, and that's the way it was originally done.
Right.
This is exactly the same shapes. And this was what was wrong. All of these laminated pieces had came loose, and they were cupped up on the edges and so forth. And most of the time when they do repairs on these, if they're not too bad, or if they're bad, they'll try to just re-glue those pieces back together.
Right.
So what we tried to do was do it a little nicer and a little better. Come in here. This is another one of those repaired pieces, and the wood will be different colors. The wood, this piece, as an example, was not repaired. This piece is the original. That's the difference in the wood.
Wow, that looks like new wood there.
This wood, hard to explain. This piece right here and this piece right here are the same original pieces of wood, even though they're different colors.
Right.
It's just the way. It's just the way the grain. They're the same wood. This is all done out of white ash.
Right.
That's what they were originally done out of.
Wow. That's a lot of, man. It's, you know, and I was telling them too, and you know, as so many of the people I talk to, they're very humble in what they do. And I was telling him that it's very rare that you can find somebody that even has the knowledge to be able to do this. But here's the amazing thing, folks. Not only can he work on the wood part of it, he can work on the metal part of it. You know what I'm saying? He's not a cabinet builder. If I was in a wood shop, I wouldn't be as impressed by this. I'm in a body shop, and they haven't built cars out of wood in 60 years, 70 years. So to find somebody that's 45 years old that can still make it happen, that's got to be cool.
Yep, he's very crafty with wood. He had a lot of experience in Florida before he moved here 6 years ago of house building and construction and cabinet making and installing cabinets and doing laminates and things like that. So he had pretty good experience, as well as he had also ran a shop similar to mine here in Florida. He had owned a shop and decided he didn't want to be a shop owner anymore. He wanted to work for somebody else, and so he came up here and came to work for me 6 years ago. So,
Wow, how lucky is that?
Anyway, it's
So what's the next step now? We're gonna go in here and you're gonna
we're going to cover all this wood up with plastic and duct tape to make sure we don't damage any of the wood during this process. And we're going to sandblast all of this back to a white coat finish, completely clean, bare metal, make it spotless clean, and then we'll prime it, and then we'll do any body repairs, which is really not going to have any. It'll require very little body work on the sheet metal of the cowl and the floor.
Right.
And we'll prime it, we'll slick it all up, and then we'll paint all of this back, the maroon, which this is actually the correct color. We're going to clean that up, but this is a little bit off. It was painted over the years, and that's not exactly the right color of maroon. This is the right color, which when it's cleaned up is prettier, but it's not as cherry a color as this is. That's the wrong color. But we'll paint this, and then once we have this painted, then we will untape the wood, and we'll tape this up around here, and we will sand all this wood again.
Right.
And we'll clear it again.
How many coats of clear will you have on that wood by the time
We'll
it's
have
done?
3 applications of clear with somewhere between 2 to 4 coats of clear each application, and then it'll be sanded. And the end result is, this is a test panel. We can get the lighting correct on it. But that's the kind of finish that it should have right here. This is the same wood. We prepped this and cleared it, sanded it, cleared it, sanded it, cleared it, and that's the kind of buildup it'll have to get a nice finish to it. So give it a nice slick finish.
Folks, you can't feel it, but you can't feel the grains or anything in that. And yet you can when it's like that.
Yeah.
You just got to keep building the clear up.
You got to build the clear up, sand it down.
Right.
And it's the same way you do furniture. It's the same finishing process you use on furniture.
Right.
It's what you do with furniture. And years ago, in the original furniture, you did it with lacquers.
I got you.
And probably when this car was done, it was probably done with lacquers. It could have possibly been done with enamels. We're doing it with a urethane catalyzed clear.
Okay.
Actually an automotive clear, which we found it works beautiful on this wood. We've done lots of this stuff with wood. And I've done a lot of clearing of wood over the years in different applications, but it works very well for what we're doing.
Cool. And who makes, what products do you use? Use DuPont out here? Do you use?
Generally Matrix, PPG. We have used DuPont at different times. We use different products. A lot of times you can only get certain colors for these cars in certain brands. So it depends on, but most of the time we use Matrix or PPG products.
I gotcha.
And DuPont, nothing wrong with any of them.
Right.
We've used them all. It just depends on which one you can get what you want in.
And this is the deck lid. And, well, it's 90% of the deck lid. And some of the things he was telling me too is that there's like 3 or 4 different radiuses on some of these pieces of wood.
That's exactly right. This curves, if you look here close with your camera, you'll see there's a bevel here. And this is radius this way, it's radius this way, and it's radius this way. In other words, this is not straight across, this is not straight this way, and it's not straight this way.
It ain't straight in any
It
way.
has a 3-stage compound curve system that's cut on.
Wow.
And he did replace, actually, replaced all of this bottom. This, and both of these, I believe, were replaced.
Yeah, I think so.
This whole corner right here was replaced. This is original, as you can see. This is replaced. This is original, and they were different colors. The pieces we took out had this same colorization in it.
And
this is original, and it's colored different right here.
Right.
That's what I'm saying on this finger joint. It just depends on which way the wood was turned and the grain was laying when they cut it.
right.
So how the colors come out.
And then like this piece here, that's exactly how it was. It may
Yeah,
look
it
like
had-
you patched it, but it was originally, that's the way it was.
That's the way it was cut.
Yeah, yeah.
Because all they were doing was making these things out of blocks of wood.
Right.
And then, you know, if they built blocks up and they said, well, here's a block, it's 2 foot long and it's 8 inches thick and 8 inches wide, and you know, well, let's cut a piece off here and let's cut this and grind and shape and file and make this one right here, and then you come out and you ended up with just a curve in it, you know.
Right.
It's a slither, for lack of a better way to put it.
I got you. Can you turn that over? Because he's done some stuff on that other side I want to show too. Just the level that a car like this goes to. And as always, I like to watch Larry work, so. A little manual labor. This is for the wires. So, I mean, that detail. These here, and correct me if I'm wrong, Larry, but these here, we're not sure what they're there for, but they didn't necessarily have to be there, but yet you put them back.
That's right. They were in there originally. There are metal panels that sit down inside here, okay? These metal panels have a wood laminate on the outside, a veneer.
Okay.
That's mahogany. So the inside of these are a cherry mahogany on the outside, but there are a metal panel that sits in here.
Okay.
And on top of the outside of it will be a veneered mahogany panel that's finished and cleared like this.
I got you.
Now, that sets in here, and then they screw into this wood in various places.
I see.
Now, we not only restored this back, but when we were talking about, this thing's very heavy.
Right,
When you
yeah,
raise
sure.
it up.
Yeah.
Okay? And they had a spring deal that mounted way up here close at this hinge. So you had all this weight hanging out here, pulling down on it, trying to hold that thing up. So what we did, I told Jeff, I said, let's see if we can't devise this a metal reinforcement that ties into this corner and into this hinge that comes down here. And if you'll notice, there's various screw holes around through here where we have made, once that metal goes in there, we'll put a metal framework we built that goes all the way down both of these legs and turns right here and bolts and screws into this wood.
I got you.
So now the wood won't sag while it's up there. It's got a piece of metal, a piece of square box tubing
Right.
that we shaped and curved around through here that will fit that front door
Right.
to reinforce it. So we restore them back, but sometimes we try to maybe improve.
Now, will they gig you on that at a competition for
because
doing?
it'll all be covered inside.
I got you. They won't even know it's there.
No one knows there. There's an upholstery panel that goes on. Right, we only did this to improve that maybe. See, the problem is sometimes these will get stored. Let's say they don't store it in a climate-controlled,
Right.
heat, climate-controlled, humidity-controlled building. If it's stored in a guy's garage, at his home or in his basement that's not climate, doesn't have climate control in it and various things, then your moisture level will cause wood to it'll
Right.
absorb the wood moisture to some
Right.
degree, and it'll want to move and do different things. And if you can enforce that wood with a piece of metal hidden in it, then you improve how it will stay, not a week from now or 6 weeks from now or a year from now, but 10 years or 15 or 20 years down the road. It will look more like it just was done.
Right. Now let me ask you, and you may not know, it ain't just because that's the way they did it, but as much wood as they use, why would they have used metal panels covered by wood in this? Why wouldn't they just made thin pieces of wood to put in there?
Because it's hard to compound curve a piece of wood
I got you.
of any thickness.
I got
Not
you.
that you can't do it.
Right.
You have to steam it. The problem is getting it to stay there. Again, once
Right.
moisture gets to the back side of it, then
Wants
it
to
wants to
go
start
back.
crawling around.
I got
If
you.
you stamp out a piece of metal that has a compound curve in it,
Yeah.
once you put it in there, once it's stamped or rolled, in these cases, I'm sure they stamped them, they did enough of them that they had a die and they stamped that piece of metal out.
Right.
Okay? It was in that shape. Then you took that thin little old, it's about a 32nd of an inch thick piece of veneer like a piece of furniture uses, and you
wet it and steam bend it, what's called steam bending. You conform it to that and then let it take its shape. Then once it takes its shape and dries out, you take it off and glue it and clamp it back down.
Right.
Now that piece of wood will stay in that shape
I
because
gotcha.
it has a piece of metal behind it.
Sure.
It's the same principle that we used here.
Right, right. All
They
right.
just didn't think at the time that a piece of metal was probably necessary.
Right.
We did.
Well, and obviously they were
And
still.
you'll notice the detail that he did here to tie these together. Not only did we glue them, he went through here and put the saw slits in these things here and put the dowels cross-pinned in here to put this back in here to reinforce this piece back here. To tie this piece out here to this piece here.
Man, there again, that's stuff that nobody will ever even know we did.
No, but the owner does. We
That's
took
right.
pictures of it and we've had pictures all the time from the owner. He's helping hit South Carolina, the gentleman that owns this car, and so. That way he can see the progress all the
Right.
time. We send him pictures every week as we're doing invoices for him. And we
Yeah.
do that with all the customers.
Right.
Most of our customers are out of state or at least out of Knoxville. Most of them out of state.
Well, one thing else I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is let me shut this camera down, folks. And this is the thing's on a rotisserie, so I'm gonna go ahead and get it rotated so it's at least on its side. And we can see what it looks like underneath, because we don't get to see the underneath of a bunch of these. So give us just a second, we'll get this thing fixed up. There isn't much rust on this thing, is there? You know, a little spot to fix here, but other than that, man, that thing is solid for that old. And then will you, I guess you, and you may have told me, I may have forgot, but you're gonna blast the underside of it and then re-undercoat it?
Actually, we won't undercoat it on this go-round. We will actually paint the underneath side of it. We're going to check on to see when it came down the assembly line. See, most of this undercoating was not done at factories.
Oh, no.
Most of these cars were undercoated at a dealer.
Okay.
And because there was undercoating on the frame as well, all over it, you know, in other words, depending on where the car was sold and delivered, particularly if it was in the northern portion of the United States, northeastern part of the United States, they would really undercoat them heavy.
Right.
And even though this car came out of Florida and probably has been in Florida for 50 years, but it may have originally been sold in the Northeast because of the heavy undercoating. But no, we will not undercoat it. It will either go back semi-gloss black or it will go back body color. Most of these cars were painted underneath the same color they were painted outside. As they come through the paint room, they just painted all over
Everything,
them.
yeah.
Now, that's not true with all cars. 55, 56 Chevrolets were left primered underneath and the paint blowed out on the bottom. So there's different ways that they were done, but we will find out whether this one was painted the burgundy underneath when it was first
Right.
put on the frame, or whether it was actually, it may have been primed in a black primer or a red oxide primer, and then just the outside painted. And then if it was going to be in an area such as snow and that sort of thing, that's why the heavy undercoating. But
I gotcha.
more than likely, this will be for concours showing, and we won't do undercoating underneath the floors.
You're not gonna drive it in the snow and the salt?
No, probably not.
Look at that. That's crazy. Man alive. Yeah, that thing is just really, the wood was the only weak spot on it.
And it was actually for a car that had not had the wood redone on it. And it original, it had had some repairs done over the years and some Mickey Mouse wood putty repairs done. Well, when he bought it, he thought, you know, it was one of the best ones he had ever looked at that still needed restoring, that, quote, had not been restored.
Right.
And he thought it was better than it was. But, you know, the more he looked at it, he said, well, the wood's good, it's just not as good as I thought it was.
Right.
And then, of course, the more we did, the more we found, and, you know, and one thing led to another. But now the wood's in excellent condition.
Oh, yeah.
But,
As good as new for sure.
you know, that's true. The weak spot in the car
Yeah.
would have been the wood.
Right.
The metal, even the fenders, you know, they had their dents and dings over the years and, you know,
Right.
repaints and whatnot and another, but the fenders weren't rusty, you know. It was, metal-wise, it's an excellent, especially for a convertible.
Right.
Car's obviously kept inside throughout its life.
Yeah, because this isn't all rusted back here, and it should be from it being a
Right.
convertible.
Convertibles were notorious, you know, if they were outside at all, because the
Right.
tops leaked on. And
Sure.
The way this is, we had a terrible seal area.
Right,
Which is
yeah.
no seal.
Right.
So, you know, the car was maintained. Most of these cars were pretty expensive, you know, at their time. They were kind of high-end, high-dollar car, and most people who bought these cars, took good care of them.
Right, and had the means to keep them under shelter
Exactly.
somehow.
Had the means to keep them inside.
Maybe not a garage, but they put
maintain
them in a barn
correctly,
or-
and,
yeah.
take care of them.
Right.
That's right.
Well, Larry, I'll tell you, brother, I mean, as always, you guys are rocking this one, that's for sure. And, I'm all about the hot rods and the street rods, but I sure like to, I really appreciate what you all are doing, putting these cars back the way they should be.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We, like I say, most people don't do the things we do. Most people either specialize in street rods or hot rods, or they specialize in antique and classic cars. And I've had the fortune throughout the years to be able to be exposed to both parts of that sport and hobby and
Right.
business. So we like to do it both ways.
Sure.
We like to do
Changes
both
up a
types of
little
cars.
bit, yeah.
Changes it up a little bit.
Lets you use all your creative freedom on one side and makes you be dedicated
That's exactly
to history
right.
on
You
the
get
other.
tired of being creative,
Right.
and trying to come up with a new trick idea.
Yeah.
You can go put it back the way the Dodge boys or the Ford boys or the Chevrolet guys decided they wanted to do it.
Yeah, still a challenge, but it's just
It's a different
a
challenge.
different challenge.
That's exactly right. It's quite the challenge to figure out and research and come up with how they did it originally.
I would say that's a job in itself.
It
There's
is.
lots of hours
Thank
involved
God
in
for
that.
the internet that has created, because 25, 30 years ago, the guys that did this had to have a complete library. They would have a library as large as that clean room right there, full of nothing but books and literature that had been written on various cars as to how they were, original manuals and shop manuals and stuff like that. And now we have the ability to use the internet and research a lot of how all this stuff was done. We can have access to that library without physically having that library in front of us.
That's a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It has its disadvantages. but
Oh, yeah,
it's really
yeah,
good
yeah,
on
yeah. Well, with so much information, there's misinformation, and, that's probably the worst thing. You probably have to double and triple check and
Right.
make sure.
Most of the time when we start doing a car, if we've not done one of these cars before, that particular one, we will find someone around the country. I've already had people that's contacted me about this car and stuff, and there's a guy in California doing one, there's a guy in New Jersey doing one. And we've been exchanging what we know and what he knows and what he's found out, and different people that he's used for various subcontractors for specialty items and little things, and suppliers for parts. So, most of the guys that do this work kind of work together.
Yeah, willing to help each other out.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Share information. If you find somebody that doesn't want to, then, well, you just don't.
Yeah, there's plenty that will, right?
That's right.
Cool. Well, again, thanks so much for letting me come out here and do
Sure.
what I do, man.
Anytime.
Yeah, folks, there you go. Obviously, we did one video on it. We've done a couple videos, I think, on this one, but we'll follow it all the way through. I just wanted to check in now that all this woodwork was done. I thought it would be a good point to update you and just let you see where it's at. So, anyways, hope you all enjoyed it. Thanks for checking it out. Have a good day. See ya.